Looking to take your financial knowledge to the next level? You're in the right place. Welcome to Ask Ralph, offering accounting, technical, and financial advice. Whether you're looking to save taxes or improve your business, he's got you covered. Here's your host of Ask Ralph, Ralph Eastup Jr.
Welcome back to the Ask Ralph Show. Today we're going to talk about the U.S. Supreme Court case that involves internet sales tax. Now, this is a question that comes up a lot of times in my practice if I've got a client that is doing, selling products across state lines. And it's really been something that's sort of been out there on the cusp of, people didn't really know how to deal with it. And on this past week, if you were watching the news, you'll see that the Supreme Court on Thursday standardized taxing rules for traditional retailers and online transactions, ruling that states and localities may collect sales tax on all purchases over the internet. So what this means in practice is, now in Delaware, we're in a lucky situation here because we don't have a state sales tax. So I don't see this impacting people buying things in Delaware, but it's certainly going to impact those of people who sell things across state lines, maybe, and they're located in Delaware. Basically, the cusp of what this means is that, so let's say you're an internet retailer and you're located here in Wilmington, Delaware, as an example. And let's say you sell dolls, okay? You sell dolls over the internet. What this ruling basically says, let's back up a step. So right now, if you're selling a doll to a customer in Pennsylvania, or you're selling a doll to a customer in New Jersey, or New York, or Kansas, pick a locality, you're not collecting a sales tax for the most part. Now, some people are, because your position is that we don't have a corporate presence in that state. It's what we call in the trade corporate nexus. And it's always been assumed that if you didn't have a corporate nexus in the state, then you didn't need to collect that state's sales tax. So if you were selling your dolls to a customer, and let's say they live in New York City, the customer would go onto your website, or however they do it, they purchase their doll, pay for their shipping, and off it goes. And that's where it stopped. Now, with this 5-4 vote by the Supreme Court, the justices ruled that online sellers can now be required to collect state and local taxes from customers, even if the internet vendors have no physical presence, such as a store or factory in the state. What does this mean to consumers? It means that the higher prices for many online shoppers and billions of dollars in extra revenue for the state. But the bigger issue here is it may pose a headache for small-scale web merchants who will have to keep track of and remit sales taxes for thousands of jurisdictions. Think about what we just talked about. So you're selling that doll, and your business is in Delaware. You don't collect sales tax from anybody. But now all of a sudden you're selling this doll in New York. But even worse, you're selling it in New York City. So now you've got to look and say, okay, is this particular product taxable at New York State level? Well, maybe it is. I'm not an expert. And then again, is it taxable at the New York City level? And then you got to figure that out. And then not only do that, you've got to go and remit those taxes when they're due. So this is a real nightmare. Now, you will hear a lot of people in the press talk about, well, yeah, it's no big deal because, there's software that can handle all this. That's fine. But think about how much time you're going to have to take to do this. Now, big retailers like the Amazons and the Walmarts of the world, and I know this is something that Amazon has apparently been doing already. They have the ability, because of their, significant reach, their significant amount of employees, that they can handle this. But the small retailers, the mom and pop internet, retailers, like, use our doll example, you're going to have to now find software that will handle, collecting these sales tax. And this is going to be a big deal. Like it says here, there was an article by McClatchy on June 21st, 2018 by David Savage of the Los Angeles Times. He states here, while Amazon and other large online retailers regularly collect sales tax on purchases, many others have refused to do so. They argued it is unfair and a heavy burden to require them to collect varying taxes charged by more than 10,000 jurisdictions across the country. 10,000 jurisdictions. Now, of course, the other side to this is the traditional retailers. Traditional stores and shop owners said it was unfair that they had to collect sales taxes on each purchase while the customers had the option to buy the same product online and avoid paying the tax. Great example of this. Let's say you went to your local Sears store. And let's say, again, we can't use Delaware as an example. Let's say we're in Pennsylvania. We go to the Sears store in Pennsylvania and we find a toolbox that we really like to buy. Okay. And we've looked at it. This is exactly what we want to buy. Well, it makes absolutely no sense for that person to buy that toolbox in Pennsylvania and pay the tax when they can go onto their smartphone, maybe right there with them, scan the product number and order it online and save that sales tax. And this is why, the brick and mortar stores have really been upset about this, because it's really been costing them sales. At the same time, the other side to this, and it marks it in this here, last year, the Government Accounting Office estimated that state and local governments were collecting 75 to 80% of the taxes they were owed from remote sellers, but they were nonetheless losing between $8 billion and $13.4 billion a year in uncollected taxes for online sales. And if you talk to the states, they're going to tell you they're even higher. For example, in California, the state sales tax is 7.25%, and counties and cities may add to that. For example, Los Angeles adds 2.25%. So there's a, and I've heard a lot of arguments on both sides of this. Some would say now it's leveled the playing field. I can agree with that. That makes sense to me. But as a consumer, I'm thinking, oh, this really stinks, because now, and again, I'm putting this in the, my practice, and our show's located in Delaware, but, it is going to impact, people who do business from Delaware outward. So what are you to do? Well, you're going to have to start looking at software that will handle this. I have one particular client that's involved in this type of online commerce, and I'm not exactly sure what it is. I want to say it's Shopify that particular client uses as that front end. And my understanding is Shopify has built, a program to handle this. But now all of a sudden, you still got that compliance nightmare. And I have no doubt, and I don't know this for sure, that these online retailers, these ones that create these sites that you can buy into and all that, are going to have to charge more, because now there's going to be a whole nother layer of compliance. So what does this do? I don't spend a lot of time on the show talking about, what if scenarios. I really think this is going to lead to a consolidation in the online market. And whenever we see consolidation, we see an increase in prices. Amazon is huge, and I'm not going to sit here and pick apart Amazon, because I use Amazon all the time. They're very convenient for getting what you need, and you get it the next day. However, because of Amazon's size, they basically make it more difficult for smaller organizations to compete. Well, now that those smaller organizations are going to be off the grid completely, Amazon and other big retailers, I feel, are going to be able to increase their prices, because there's going to be less competition. They still have the benefit of that. It's what they do. They've got a great, breadth of products. But the online retailers who have, provided sort of a niche market are really going to be stuck by this. So it'll be interesting to see how this plays out. Like I said, if you're a brick and mortar store, this may be a positive thing. If you're a state and local, a government agency, you probably love this. It's going to be more collection of tax. Of course, if you're a consumer and you don't live in Delaware or one of the other states that doesn't tax, this is going to catch you in the wallet. It's just going to cost you more money. That pair of shoes you order from Amazon, you're now going to pay sales tax on, and depending upon where you live, it could be state, local, and city tax. So I hope this was helpful about the new state sales taxes.
You've been listening to Ask Ralph, brought to you by Saggio Accounting Plus. Please subscribe to and rate our podcast on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts, and leave us a rating and review. Our podcast is produced by Carolyn Peters. Thank you for listening, and be sure to like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter at Ask Ralph Media. You can also hear me each week on 1450 WILM and on 1410 WDOV in Delaware, and on the iHeartRadio app. Submit your questions or ideas for future shows by sending an email to AskRalph@AskRalph.com.
The information contained in this episode of Ask Ralph is based on data available as of the date of its release. Saggio Accounting Plus and Ask Ralph Media Inc. is under no obligation to update this content if changes occur. Applying this information to your specific situation requires careful consideration of all facts and circumstances, and any information provided is not to be considered as financial, tax, or legal advice. Please consult your tax advisor or attorney before acting on any material covered.